D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Derek Mason and Adam Vingan here with you. Willie Donick is in the Mile High City, Denver, where the Predators will start their road trip against the Avalanche. Puck drop at 8. Pre-game here on 1025, 1063 The Game starting at 7. We hope that Willie will join us at some point during the program. I hope everybody is having a wonderful start to their Monday. Happy Veterans Day to all of you out there. Thank you for your service to our country.
Absolutely.
I'd also like to wish my wife, Bridget, a happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Bridget. There you go.
It is the 6th anniversary of her 30th birthday.
Ah. Hold on, say that again.
It is the 6th anniversary of her 30th birthday.
Oh, okay. So she's been 30 for the last 6 years.
Yes.
Oh, you're going to get punched in the gut tonight.
I did get her a cake yesterday, and I did put a 3 and a 0 candle on there. She is 36.
Okay.
Happy birthday, my love. I hope that you have a wonderful day. She's working, unfortunately.
Okay.
But
you don't get birthdays off no more?
I guess not.
Oh, okay. I guess that was old school.
Most girls like to do birthday weeks.
Oh, she's not a birthday week type of person?
No. Neither am I, so that's good.
But you're happy that she's not a birthday week type
Absolutely.
of person.
It's a birthday.
Yeah.
Day.
Nobody's been born like a week straight. Like, okay, Monday, your arm comes out.
Oh my God.
Tuesday, your shoulder come out. Wednesday, your torso. Thursday, then what else? And then finally your toes come out on Friday. So that's how you get to celebrate it the whole week.
That sounds like a terrible
very
labor
much so.
process.
Very much so.
But Derek, one thing about the Tennessee Titans, and by the way, they lost again. Shocker.
Yeah,
no pun intended with the shocker.
Mm-hmm.
They losing to the Chargers 27-17 yesterday. That's not a surprise.
No.
And the thing about the Titans, unfortunately, is they're not entertainingly bad. Like watching a car wreck, watching NASCAR, hoping that the cars will crash, something like that. Although Will Levis did come back yesterday, and I thought to myself, get ready, everybody. He's about to do something stupid. But he didn't. He actually had his best game of the season. And by the way, I did say he wasn't going to throw an interception.
You did say that.
And he didn't. I think that's the only thing I got right last week.
Yeah,
but he did not throw an interception. That was statistically his best game of the season. He had a passer rating of 127.4. 18 of 23 for 175 yards and 2 touchdowns, though one of those touchdowns came in garbage time. But the problem with this Titans team is it's becoming harder to watch them just because you know what the script is going to be before you even watch the game. Yesterday, I think, was the first game that it was maybe around halftime, early second half. I had the game on. I was paying attention, but I wasn't as invested in it as I've been in the other games just because I know how this is going to play out. And it did. So, it's one thing to be bad. It's another thing to be bad and boring, predictable, whatever word you want to use. They're becoming a tougher and tougher watch every week for that reason.
Yeah, they're just not a good team. And I think they try any and everything on a Sunday to try to generate some type of momentum. And, sometimes it work and it usually work in the first half. And then for whatever reason in the second half, they can't manage to get anything going. But this is not a good team. And, the quarterback came in, Will Levis, and, listen, he played a good game. He played a game that we hoped he would play after sitting for a while. And when I say hoped he would play, meaning he didn't turn the football over. He looked as if he was a competent quarterback out there. But yet and still, it's weird because even though you look at him and say, okay, he played a decent game, he played a good game, it still wasn't good enough to win a football game. It still wasn't good enough to scare the LA Chargers. It still wasn't good enough for them to score more than 14 points or 17 points. It still wasn't good enough that fans look at it and say, you know what? He's the guy. It still wasn't good enough where the fans look at it and say, well, this team, the second half of the season, I can see this team really taking a step forward. It was almost like they said, listen, you got we're going to give you guardrails. And we're going to make sure you don't mess up the game. And we're gonna do a few things here and there, but we're gonna condense the game so much that you can't mess it up. And he still almost sort of like messed it up in a sense for himself. Why? Because he held on to the ball too damn long.
7 sacks.
7 sacks.
Yesterday.
And I'm not gonna put all 7 sacks on the offensive line because there were 2 sacks that he had. I think there were back-to-back sacks that he drifted into the defender and he held on to the ball. And instead of saying there's a clock in your head that says, okay, I got to go. And that clock is very quick. And it's not like you have, the Hogs of the late 80s, early 90s. And I'm talking about the Washington, formerly Redskins, now Commanders. That offensive line was great. You don't have the Detroit Lions offensive line where you can sit there, tie your shoes, take a smoke break and still be able to
make
throw
some
the ball
breakfast.
down. Exactly. And still be able to throw it down the field. You don't have that type of offensive line. But for some reason he thought he did. But this is not a problem that just happened yesterday. I've said for games, for a year now, he drifts into watching. He drifts into sacks. He drifts into defenders. He doesn't help his tackle whatsoever. And it happened again yesterday. He was drifting into sacks where if he just steps up in the pocket, don't see nobody and then run, he would have at least gained 5 yards. But even with that, he didn't do it, which tells me he still hasn't learned the nuances of playing that position. Another prime example for you, Adam. What have we been talking about all this time with Will Levis in regards to once he gets outside of the pocket? Get down, right? Don't take those big hits. What did he do the first time he gets outside the pocket?
Took a big hit.
He took a big hit. Like, why, Will? You're running to your right. There's nobody there. Nobody. When they showed the reverse angle, there was nobody there that was uncovered. Everybody was covered. And you still, instead of throwing the ball away, living to play another day, you took a 1 yard loss and a big hit. That right there tells me you're not the guy. No matter how long you sit out, no matter what they tell you, you still are going to do what you want to do. What that thing still clicks in your mind. Like when the stuff starts getting hot, I'm going to revert back to Will Levis. That tells me he doesn't get it. Again, he can play quarterback in this league, but he can't be a starter.
We have a text on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com saying, tell the receivers to get open then. He stands back there so long looking downfield, and I haven't heard anyone once say that any of them were open.
Listen, okay, let me say this. Every play, a receiver is not going to be open. They get paid just as well as you get paid. I think on a couple of those, it was third and long. When you have third and long or second and long, there's only so much you can call as an offense because you're not going to get the big chunk that you need. If indeed that's the case, when you see this, it's not there. There's a clock. There's a mental clock in your head that says, go, run, because ain't nobody open. And it usually happens within like 2 seconds, 2 to 3 seconds, and then you dart and go. He doesn't do that. It has nothing to do with the wide receivers getting open or not. because they're not going to get open every time. But quarterbacks, competent quarterbacks, when they see that, what do? They take off running or they throw the ball away. He's taking too many sacks, waiting on somebody to get open. This is not flag football. Okay?
There is a tweet. I don't know how to pronounce this person's name. Rich Rybar, perhaps. It was retweeted into my timeline by Mike Herndon of paulkaharski.com. I find this to be interesting. The person tweets a few sack percentage on pressures versus teammates with 25 plus dropbacks. Joe Flacco, 26%, 38th, versus Anthony Richardson, 18.4%, 17th. Will Levis, 33.9% versus Mason Rudolph, 12.5%. So if I'm reading this correctly, Will Levis has been sacked on 33.9% of the pressures against him, while Mason Rudolph has been sacked on 12.5%.
And they're both playing they're both playing behind the same offensive line, right?
Yes.
And they both have the same receivers, right? But one knows how to get rid of the ball, even when nobody's open. He just gets rid of it, or he run, and the other doesn't. Those are things, those are the little nuances of playing a position that you must learn. If you can't figure that out, you're not going to last long in this game. Why? Because you're going to take hits that you do not need to take.
What do some of these quarterbacks have in common? So this is from the same person. Highest sack percentage on pressures. The league average is 21.4%. Will Levis is the worst at 33.9%, followed by Caleb Williams at 32.5%, followed by Deshaun Watson at 30.8%, followed by Baker Mayfield at 30%, followed by Joe Flacco at 26%. Is there a common thread that connects those quarterbacks?
Oh man, I would say this, unless you have something else.
I don't.
I would say this.
I hand the
They're
floor to
all
you.
looking for the big play. They're all looking for that big play. And instead of just saying, you know what, let me run and get a couple of yards and get down, or let me throw the ball away. Those quarterbacks, their thought process is, I'm going to find somebody open. A lot of times you're not going to find somebody open. That's just the way it is. Now, you can throw the ball in a tight space, but then you open yourself up to turnovers. But each one of those quarterbacks tries to find a guy open instead of saying, you know what, nobody's open, let me get out of here, or let me throw the ball away. They're trying to make that play when there's no play to be made.
I think of Joe Flacco being the outlier in that, maybe because he's older and
Yeah,
slower.
he's older. So Joe, he rather throw the ball than to run down the field, or
Right.
he may do it at Joe runs when he needs to run, critical times of the game when he needs to run. If it's not that time, if it's not that point in a game, he's looking to throw the football. And sometimes he takes too many sacks while trying to do it. And then again, name all those quarterbacks. You got Baker, you got Will Levis.
Let me find that list again. So these are the top quarterbacks in highest sack percentage on pressures.
Mhm.
Levis,
Uh-huh.
Caleb Williams,
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield, Joe Flacco.
Big arms. All of them feel they got the arm to make the throw no matter how long they're waiting to make it. They all feel they had that arm to make the throw. That's what it is. You look at all of them. All of them at one point, you know, the sort of scouting on them was they got big arms. They can make every throw. Baker, Watson, Joe definitely. Levis, obviously. All these guys feel if I hold on to the ball long enough, I can make that throw. Well, sometimes that throw isn't there to make. Live to see another play.
He does not have good protection.
No, he doesn't.
Especially at right tackle. We all know that. But it's clear that Will Levis has an issue of knowing when he's under pressure and knowing what to do to evade that pressure.
He has no awareness.
Yes. He seems to have no awareness. And I believe that was an issue that he had dating back to college as well. So at his age, he's 25, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
At his age, how much better can we expect him to get at those things? I'm really not sure. So although Levis did have, statistically, his best performance of the season yesterday in the loss to the Chargers. You still see the signs of why he probably is not going to be a everyday starter in the NFL, whether it's here or somewhere else. Speaking of Will Levis, Sean is on our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com with a comment on Will Levis. Sean, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, guys. I just, in regards to Will Levis, when you, to me, and I'm going to respectfully disagree with you guys to a point. Will Levis has started somewhere between 12 and 14 games, something like that. And Rudolph has been in the league quite a bit longer than him. He has a little bit more experience. I don't think it's quite the fair comparison there just yet. He's still a rookie when it comes to actual playing time. And I know he's not a perfect quarterback. He's got a lot of room to grow, and he's not playing the best. However, when you go back and look through history, the team around him is just not that good. As you guys have pointed out, the line is suspect at best. He doesn't have the best group of wide receivers out there. I'm just not sure that it's time to yank the plug on the boy just yet. This is a new system, and he is having trouble adjusting to it. But I mean, there is way more problems than Will Levis on that team, or there's more than just Will Levis being a problem on that team. Mason Rudolph didn't set the world on fire for our team either. So I don't know. I look at Ryan Tannehill. He was considered pretty much a bust in Miami, and he came and had a revival, so to speak, in Tennessee for a few years because they had a better team than Miami did at the time. So I'm just not sure that Miami is Tennessee is giving him a fair shake at this thing just yet.
Thanks for the call, Sean. And Sean's point is one that a lot of people who are either defending Will Levis or are trying to be more optimistic about things, his point there is one you hear a lot. He started 15 games in the NFL. That's not a full season of games in the NFL. But one thing to keep in mind, and I mentioned it as well, I mentioned it earlier as well, Derek, and then we'll get your thoughts on this before we go to break. With all of the stuff that's happening with Anthony Richardson right now, you could certainly quibble with how the Indianapolis Colts have handled Anthony Richardson. He is still 22 years old. Yeah. He has room to grow. Oftentimes, now I don't know how it works with quarterbacks. There are other sports where I am better at analyzing and this is the question for you, Derek. Will Levis, despite starting 15 games in the NFL, he's 25 years old. Like, usually, I would say, by 25, you have, and we'll talk about this later because the Predators made a move over the weekend that had a lot of people up in arms, and we'll talk about this later as well. At 25, how much more room does Will Levis really have left to grow? I know he's only played 15 games, but he's an older player. So, in your opinion, what are the years of his prime, and how much more time does he actually have to figure these things out?
Listen, the clock is running out on him because this is a league where if you don't show it within the first year, 2 years, then they're looking to move on, especially as people within your division and your conference. It seems as if they are finding their quarterbacks. So you are lagging further and further behind. In the case of Will Levis, I'm not sure how much more he can learn because of this. You see, people just watch the little things that he do. I think when y'all are looking at him, y'all are just watching. Oh, he's not throwing any more interceptions. He's completing. He had a quarterback rating of 100 and something. So y'all looking at
127.4 yesterday.
127.4. But I can show you a 127.4 by Jackson, by Josh Allen, by CJ Stroud, by some of these other quarterbacks, and it looks totally different from his 120 something. I can put it side by side, and theirs looks like, okay, this is the guy. He's the guy. And his look like, he's not the guy. I don't know if he's gonna get it. So let's just not look at the quarterback rating. Just look at some of the things that he's doing, like the little small things. For instance, like I said, when the first time he had a chance to get outside the pocket, running to his right, there was nobody open. You clearly see that there's no one open. But yet and still, when the coaches has told you, even the last regime told you, get down. If you don't, you're not going to last in this league a long time.
Yes, this issue of not
Exactly.
sliding predates Brian Callahan.
Absolutely.
Mike Vrabel was talking about it as well.
And then what does he do?
Still takes a big hit.
After coming back from a shoulder injury. Absolutely.
Yes.
And you take another big hit. Why? For no apparent reason. You wasn't getting the first down. People, those are the little things that I talk about when in regards to Will Levis. I'm glad he didn't throw an interception. I really am. I'm glad he didn't fumble the ball, but he's still doing those little things that will ultimately hurt him, that will ultimately put him on a sideline. So if he can't figure out the little things, how do you expect him to figure out the big things?
615-737-1025. We will take your thoughts on the Titans and their 27-17 loss to the LA Week's Nashville's best deal of the week is Fat Bottom Brewing Company. Enjoy their long-awaited release of their barrel-aged Noel Christmas Ale just in time for the holidays. Get half off a $100 gift card now at theGameNashville.com/deals while supplies last.
It's never too late to start thinking about the big game. And this November, which has started, Zen Sports, the new sports book in Tennessee, has launched a brand new sweepstakes for all its Tennessee customers. The Big Game Sweepstakes, where you could win a grand prize of 2 tickets to Super Bowl 59 in the hometown of one Adam Vingan, New Orleans. Am I right, Adam?
No.
That's not your hometown?
No.
That's your home team.
That's my
That's
home
your
team.
home team. Excuse me. His home team. Well, how did that become your home team if it's not your hometown?
We'll discuss this later.
Yes, let's please do, because this is confusing. Or $10,000 cash. And what's more, in Zen Sports will also award 50 additional prizes, which includes 2 tickets to any Tennessee sporting event or $100 cash. Want in on the action? You can earn multiple entries every day just by betting on Zen Sports app. For every bet you place, you will earn 1 entry, and for every dollar you bet, earn an additional entry, like parlays. Even double the entries on every parlay place. So, what are you waiting for? When you sign up for Zen Sports, you'll automatically earn up to $100 no danger first wager. If your first bet loses, you'll be reimbursed for the amount of your bet up to $100. So start betting with Zen Sports and download their app today. That's Zen Sports, where betting just got better. And remember, gambling problems, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 years or older to bet here in Tennessee.
D. Mace, Vengan, and Donick, 1025, 1063, The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. By the way, Derek, just to correct you on your live read, I am a Saints fan. I was born in North Carolina, raised in Virginia, adopted the Saints as my team about 20 years ago. It's very confusing. So I gave you a hard time, but just know I understand how confusing it is. But you did say something interesting during before the break that I looked it up during the break. You said that Will Levis had a passer rating yesterday of 127.4, which I believe is, it was definitely his best of the season. I have to go back and see what it was against Atlanta in his debut. But he had a 127.4 passer rating. And you said, I can find you another quarterback with a similar passer rating, and it looks a lot different. Challenge accepted. So I went to Lamar Jackson's page. In week 5 against the Bengals, the Ravens won 41-38. Lamar Jackson had a passer rating of 119.9, which is lower than 127.4. In that game, Lamar Jackson threw for 348 yards and 4 touchdowns and still had a lower passer rating, which is the limitations of passer rating. But they had a lower passer rating in that game, 348 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, had a lower passer rating than Will Levis did yesterday.
Yeah, so it doesn't all look the same. And when you flash, Will Levis is 127, you say, okay, but then you start, if you watch the game, you would think it was pedestrian. 2, it wasn't winning football. And then 3, it tells you, well, numbers really don't tell the whole story, because again, you go to Lamar Jackson, you could have probably went to Josh Allen or Herbert or one of these guys and saw a quarterback rating that was lower, but the point output was higher, and they got the victory. So when you look at Will Levis and you say, well, they're not surrounding him with this guy, and it seems like, he needs a little bit more time. How much time are you going to get him? He's operating behind the same and with the same guys that Mason Rudolph was operating behind and with the exception of D-Hop. That's the only guy that is not in this equation. But Mason Rudolph found a way to get rid of the ball a lot quicker. I'm not saying that he was better than Will Levis and all. No, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the things that Will Levis continues to do, the little small things that is not allowing him to grow as a quarterback. Taking a hit when he don't need to take it. Stand in the pocket a little bit too long when he should just, either throw the ball away or run and get some yardage. Those are the little things that eventually they start adding up and become big things.
Here's another one for you because it's nearly identical. In week 3, the Bengals lost 38-33 to the Washington Commanders. Joe Burrow had a passer rating of 127.5. Remember, Levis yesterday, 127.4. In that game, Burrow, 324 passing yards, 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, so it's the numbers can be misleading sometimes. Watch the games and you tell me that 120, whatever he had, was good enough to win. It still wasn't good enough to win.
The good thing from yesterday was that Will Levis did not lose the Titans the game yesterday.
Exactly.
He did not make a mistake to blow the game as he did near the beginning of the season. And I just wonder if at this point is the best you can hope for from Will Levis is the best you can hope for him being a better version of Mason Rudolph. I mean, Mason Rudolph is a veteran quarterback. He has limitations. He was thrown in there when Levis was injured against 2 fantastic teams. He did the best he could, and we saw what happened. Is the best version of Will Levis we can expect just a slightly improved version of Mason Rudolph?
The way it's trending, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get I do believe this. You're going to get Daniel Jones type of play.
Daniel Jones, by the way,
moving forward,
might be available next season.
Yeah.
So if the Titans are looking for a quarterback, Daniel Jones.
Danny Dimes back in Nashville.
Let me ask you this question. If given the choice, salaries are salary plays a big part of this. So let's just remove salary, which is a big thing to remove. But let's just remove salary. I just want people to respond to this on text.
Mhm.
Would you rather have another year of Will Levis or Daniel Jones at quarterback?
Damn. That's not a good choice.
That's a hard one, man.
That is not a choice. So
they're basically the same.
Yeah. So you want to go from
one is much more expensive, but again, I'm just talking about the player on the field.
You want to go from a young worse to a bad worse. I mean, from a young worse to an older worse.
Right.
Technically, I think they're right around the same age, but I'm talking about as far as
Daniel Jones is 27.
And Will Levis is 25. Daniel Jones been in the league, 4 years now? 5 years?
God, it feels like longer than that.
Yeah, 5 years, 6, somewhere around there.
But the Giants are in.
So I'm going to take it's basically you're just getting a younger version of Daniel Jones.
This is Jones's 6th year in the NFL.
Yeah, you basically, if you go with Will Levis, you're just getting a younger version of Daniel Jones. That's all you're getting.
Ugh.
Exactly.
Ugh.
And listen, I am not just like Daniel Jones. Will Levis is a quarterback in this league. He can play quarterback in this league for all 32 teams. All 32 teams. And he can have a long career, but he can't play it as a starter. He's not starting material at this point. And I'm not sure if he will ever get to that point unless you just force it and make him the starter like the Titans are doing now because they have no recourse. They go back to Mason Rudolph. They know what they're going to get. And that's not what they're looking for.
Yeah, I think, right now things can change. And by the way, we have 1 vote for Will Levis and 1 vote for Daniel Jones. So early returns split on this conversation. Very small sample size within the margin of error. I know people are sick about hearing polls.
Yeah.
We're past that point, fortunately. Someone voted Gardner Minshew. That was not a choice. I said Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
This isn't like we're not writing in the ballot.
Yeah, these are no writing ballots.
No write-in candidates.
No independent talent candidates.
This is an A and B conversation. So see your way out of it, Gardner Minshew.
But I would take Gardner Minshew, but I don't want to open up that door.
Right. But right now, I see Will Levis being what Mason Rudolph has been for the Titans this season. He goes to another team. He's a backup. The starter gets injured. He plays for 3 games. He makes some good plays. He's mostly unspectacular, and that's it. And that's it. Damien in Nashville says shows where the Titans are when Levis doesn't turn the ball over and they still lose by 10, and Goff throws 5 interceptions and the Lions still win.
That's just that's again. The texter is right. That just shows you where they are as a franchise at this point. On one end, you got a guy throwing 5 interceptions, and they still managed to find a way to win. If Will Levis threw 5 interceptions, they would get beat 80-0. They would. If he threw 5 interceptions, they would get beat 80-0. But that just shows you, one, the makeup of one franchise and the other, the depth on one franchise compared to the other, the sort of the way the confidence they elude based upon this franchise where, hell, they haven't done enough winning to have the confidence to go out there. And if we turn the ball over once or twice, we know we still going to win the game. They know the more times they already got a 50-50 shot of winning a game. Sometimes it's really 40-60, meaning they only got a 40% chance. And then when you turn the ball over, those chances dwindle very quickly. They know they're not the type of team that can turn the ball over and still win games. They know they're the type of team, if the defense don't hold up their end of the bargain, more than likely they will win the game. Why? Because they can't go in a shootout, because they don't have the quarterback to, get in a shootout with a team. They don't have an offensive line to get in a shootout with a team. They don't have the receivers as a whole to get in a shootout with a team. So if they're going to win games, their defense has to be the cornerstone of them winning each and every week. And then the offense sort of just don't do anything to mess it up. Well, yesterday, they didn't do much to mess up the game. But what happened? The defense didn't hold up their end of the bargain in the second half.
One texter says, Daniel Jones, just because it's different junk. You know what they say? One man's trash is another man's different trash.
You know, I mean, hey, to help out Daniel Jones, he did run really, really fast once. Like he broke 22 miles per hour
And then he tripped.
running. Yeah, but he still ran fast. I'm just trying to like help him out. I mean,
Didn't that happen? He was breaking away for a
yeah,
touchdown.
and then he tripped.
And
Yeah,
he tripped over
yeah,
his
yeah.
own
He
feet.
tripped over
So
himself.
I guess
It's not good, but I mean,
no.
hey, he did it once.
It's just a different version of worse. But, who knows?
He's just taller. That's just all it is.
615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your thoughts on Will Levis, the Titans, whatever you want to discuss on our phone and text lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Coming up next, there was a controversial play in the game yesterday, and we have received an explanation. We will give it to you next. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063, The Game.
Hey, this is Derek Mason. No, I'm just I'm sorry, people. I had to do that. I had to do that. No, and listen, I'm not making fun of him, but it's just funny. Hey, this is Derek Mason. You heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose some weight, chances are it's not your first time. Setting a resolution just to shed some extra pounds, only to face a little disappointment. But at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offered a different approach to weight loss. The comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition. You need that. Exercise, definitely. Blood test supplements and more. They will customize a program specific to you. Believe me, listen, I know all about this. At least every 2 to 3 months, I go there to get blood work to make sure everything is working well. So you should do the same. It's just a part of what they do over there at Cool Springs MD. Connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Derek trying out to be a professional wrestler during that live read.
Yeah.
You can't handle the pain.
Zen Sports Cool Sprays MD.
You sound like Frankenstein when you say that. But as you're attempting to imitate Booker T
Yes.
during that read, I was just thinking to myself, he didn't just say that. Tell me he did not just say that. But there was a controversial play in the Titans game. It's late in the second half. Justin Herbert drops back. Jeffrey Simmons sacks Justin Herbert. He drops the ball. Roger McCreary recovers it, scampers 20 yards for a touchdown. Titans think they have the lead. It's reviewed, and it's reversed. And here's my thing on replay. I do think it's important to have replay in sports. But the problem is that you're looking for such a minuscule thing that I feel like that takes the fun out of the game. We talk about this in hockey with offside challenges. God forbid a player's skate is 1 millimeter over the blue line before the puck gets there. It's no goal. I mean, you have to account for human error in sports. That's why I don't like the idea of robot umpires in baseball. Like the human aspect of it is part of what makes the game the game.
Exactly.
So the good thing about the NFL is that they do make officials available for comment after the game. So Joe Reedy, who we spoke to on Friday to preview the game, interviewed NFL Vice President of Instant Replay, Mark Butterworth. Wonder if he's related to Mrs. Butterworth. Mark Butterworth after the game. And this is what Butterworth's explanation was. The question Reedy asked was, what was the basis for the call on the field and then the overturn? Butterworth responded, quote, the on-field officials ruled that it was a fumble recovered by the defense and in for a touchdown. All scoring plays are under the jurisdiction of the replay booth in New York. We stopped the game as there was a significant question as to whether his, meaning Herbert's hand, was coming forward with the ball. Once we went into review, all we need is the hand moving forward with control of the ball, and so we ended up overturning it to an incomplete pass. Follow-up question. You did believe the quarterback had control of the ball as he pushed forward? Response, yes, when his hand was moving forward, he had control. It was tight, and we were going frame by frame, and his hand, as his hand was moving forward, he had control and then lost it, so we overturned it to an incomplete pass. Final question. What was the angle where you guys decided to overturn? Because the two that were shown on the scoreboard, one from behind the quarterback and then the one on the sideline, at least from the video review on the scoreboard, it didn't look conclusive. So what angle did you guys use? Response, we were going through angles and there was an enhanced angle from the broadcast that we could see the hand coming forward. Again, we're going frame by frame and the hand was coming forward with control of the ball and then he lost control of the ball. So that was the NFL's explanation for overturning the strip sack touchdown by Jeffrey Simmons / Roger McCreary to an incomplete pass. And that's my point. It's like if you're going frame by frame by frame to see where his hand is, it just takes the fun out of the game. I mean, when that play happened, I thought to myself, there's no way they're reversing this because even if there is a question about whether his hand was coming forward, it seemed way too close to be conclusive. If you are going to reverse a call, it has to be clear as day that the call you made on the field was incorrect. If it's just because his hand was just a little bit more forward than you thought, I call BS on that play. But I also call BS on just on replay in general, that frame by frame by frame. It's like the friggin' Zapruder film. Like we're playing football. Like it was, if it looks like a fumble, it's probably a fumble. So that's where I stand on it. What did you think of that play? And what do you think about the NFL's explanation for overturning the call?
I think it was a good play by Jeffrey Simmons. I think the awareness by Roger McQuarrie to pick up the football and to run with it, because we've seen instances where the ball's been fumbled and guys sort of pick it up and really don't know what to do with it, or just leave it on the ground and no whistle has been blown. So it was heads up by McQuarrie to pick up the ball and run it into the end zone. Listen, you're right, Adam. If you slow everything down, that's why a lot of times I don't like the targeting sort of thing and going back and reviewing it, because if you slow it up frame by frame, yeah, I can then sort of decide that was targeting.
Right.
If I slow it up frame by frame by frame,
where you don't show the whole play
Exactly.
and you cut to the point of impact, or right
Exactly.
before the point of impact.
absolutely. So yeah, it does look like the guy targeted him. But if you run it in real time, it just looks like a good hit. And more than likely, it's just a good solid hit. But when you slow it down frame by frame, you can get exactly what you want. Listen, the league made the call. And just like Jeffrey Simmons said, hey, listen, right, the league, they rooted a fumble on the field. The league came in and they had jurisdiction over all of it. And they said, no, it wasn't a fumble. What more can Jeffrey Simmons do? What more can Roger McQuarrie do? Nothing. But again, if you slow it down to a point, yes, you will then see, oh, well, yeah, he did have control. Yeah, his hand looks like it's going slightly forward. To me, like you said, it's taking the your humanness out of it.
Yes, there needs to be a human
Yeah,
element
it's like,
in
okay,
sports.
if we slow this up, to a point where we can just see every little inch in movement of an individual's hand or body, yes, we can probably end up at the end saying, you know what, it was a fumble.
Predators fans will remember this years and years and years ago, before the advent of the offside challenge. Speaking of the Predators and Avalanche, they play tonight.
Mhm.
Matt Duchene, when he was a member of the Avalanche, and I believe Chris Mason was in net for this play.
I remember this play.
He was so far offside, clear as day, was offside. That's when you should have a challenge, or at the time they couldn't challenge it, but it was clear as day that Matt Duchene was offside. That, I feel, is what offside challenges should be for. When the call on the field is so egregiously missed that you need someone to look at it. And that's what my issue is with this play. It's just this idea that, I mean, where do they determine the arm moving forward? Like, and if it's just a slight bit one way versus the other, I mean, look, the Titans could have, who knows what that play would have done? I mean, maybe the Titans go into halftime. They probably do, since it's late in the second half.
It would have been 14-13
going into halftime. They would have had a lead at halftime. Now we know what the Titans are like in the second half. So who knows if they would have won? Probably not. But it certainly changed the momentum of the game. And I just think, like, if you want to replay, I understand that you have to replay. I
Mhm.
get it. Like, I get that. But it's just like, over something that small, it just drives me nuts that this is what replay has come to. Is just, I think some people in like hockey call them toenail challenges. God forbid your toenail is just offside before the puck enters. But this play reminds me of that, where it is, I don't know. My point is, to your point, the human element is important in sports, and things like this suck the fun out of them a little bit for me.
Yeah, it does. But I mean, ultimately, the Titans didn't do what they needed to do in the second half, because they end up getting the ball right after halftime and were not able to generate much of anything once the second half, got going. So yes, that play would have been, a real momentum shift heading into halftime. But ultimately, you have to be, you have to do what you need. You need to do what you need to do in the second half in order to win football games. And whether they counted that for them, and obviously they didn't, it would have been 14-13, and the Titans still wouldn't have generated anything in the second half. So yes, we can sit here and say, well, they deserved that call. That was a bogus call. Yes, I do believe that was a call where, I mean, man, if you got to go like frame by frame by frame by frame by frame to look for something, then of course you're gonna find what you're looking for. To me, it was a fumble. It should have been ruled as a fumble and held up as a fumble, but it wasn't. But yet and still, the Tennessee Titans should have came out in the second half and did what they needed to do in order to score points and win a football game. And for the what's their record? 2-6, 2-7.
2-7.
For the like seventh time, probably been more longer. Well, let's just say for the seventh time, because I'm not going to count the 2 wins. But for the seventh time this season, they haven't been able to generate anything in the second half.
615-737-1025 will get to your calls and texts on the Titans. They lose again 27-17 to the Los Angeles Chargers on the road. We will get back to the conversation about the Titans next. I almost called you Willie Donick. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063 The Game. D Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Derek Mason and Adam Vingan here with you on Monday afternoon. Hope that everybody's having a wonderful start to their day. Willie Donick is in Denver, where the Predators will they'll visit the Colorado Avalanche, I should say. They will visit the Colorado Avalanche tonight. Puck drop at 8, pregame at 7, of course, right here on 1025, 1063 The Game. Before we get to our next topic, Derek, Eric is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Eric, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Well, you know something, brother. What's going on, guys? How y'all doing?
An impressive Hulk Hogan. I'll give that a 6 out of 10.
Yeah. Hey, guys, first of all, in all seriousness, I just want to say a shout out to veterans. Happy Veterans Day. Thank you for your service and what you do for this country. So, guys, listen, I'm going to get to that fumble play very, very last because I've got something I want to make a point on, which I don't think after I say it, you're going to be able to disagree with me. But first of all, in general, we're a bad football team. We stink. One of the frustrating things is, guys, we were up 7-3. And then we had a shot to get a field goal. And I guess it was Watson had 2 back-to-back penalties where it backed up Nick Folk kicking the field goal, and they missed it. And I think he also had another penalty early in the game, and that was just frustrating to see that lineman get 3 penalties. In the second half, we had the first drive where we take half the time off the clock, get a field goal. Very next play, 56-yard kick return back the other way. And like in about a minute, they're inside of 20. A couple plays later, they get a touchdown. And then last draw, where they were backed up inside their 5, and then they went 95 yards, gets a touchdown. It just seems like every time we make positive plays, it seems like the very next play we do something stupid or inside a minute, whether it's penalties, a turnover, give up a sack, or we give up a touchdown. It's just like we can't stay at prosperity. It seems like every time we do something positive, either the next play or within a minute after we make a positive play, we do something stupid. It's every single week, and that's what's the frustrating thing about this. But, guys, let me say this about that play that happened there. Guys, I think it should have stood, whatever it was ruled. It's just so frustrating to get calls overturned. And I wouldn't have had a problem, guys, if it was ruled incomplete pass originally, and then it stood. But the fact, it reminds me of Joshua Dobbs play was a fumble, and it stayed that way. It's just like we can't catch a break. And here's the real frustrating things about this, guys, because everybody says, well, good teams, bad teams. It's like bad teams don't get calls, and that's true. But, guys, here's the thing that I want to say, and I don't think you can disagree with me about this. If that play had happened, like, for instance, next week in the Kansas City-Buffalo game, you're not telling me we're not talking about that play. You'll never convince me we're not talking about that play if that happens in a big game like that. Or in the Super Bowl, the fact that it's happened in this game and I don't hear anybody talking about this play, it's just so frustrating. It doesn't matter to me if it's a big or small game. All I ask for is consistency. Because I guarantee you, if that has happened next week in the Kansas City Buffalo game, that play, or in the Super Bowl, you're never convinced me we're not talking about that play. Guys, just want to get your thoughts, guys. Y'all take care, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric. I'm sure he's right. You know, if this happens to, Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes in a game that they're playing one another, it is a huge story. It's the first lead on every sports station, around, or every channel around. They're going to lead with that. Was it a fumble? Was it not a fumble? Should the refs had overturned it? Should they not? Whatever the case may be. But because the Titans are not a good team, there's not going to be more coverage on this other than what we are doing. And listen, I expect that, when you are not one of the better teams in the National Football League, this is what you get. You get a swift explanation, and that is it. Y'all deal with it. We made the call, move on. And there's nothing players can say, so I do agree with Eric on that. Like if this was a bigger game, it would have been, the ramifications would have been bigger, and we would have been talking about this. Maybe not us, but I'm just saying in general, we would have been talking about this. Would have been the lead story headed into Monday.
It could be worse, I suppose. There are a few other teams around the NFL that are just as bad, and they're making headlines, You have Jerry Jones arguing with reporters about the sun at AT&T Stadium because I believe it was CD Lamb had a touchdown that he could not see because the sun was in his eyes. I think he wanted there to be curtains.
Somebody asked him about curtains, and he was like, "Yeah, that'd be good."
What Jerry Jones said when asked about curtains was, "Let's just tear the damn stadium down and build another one."
Jerry, that's just
So there's that.
Mhm.
There's the Giants. We alluded to Daniel Jones earlier. The Giants are a complete mess. The Bears, that's something else. I got a kick out of this morning. So Matt Eberflus, the Bears coach, does a weekly interview on ESPN 1000 in Chicago.
Mhm.
And when he was doing his interview today, his phone kept cutting out. Wherever he was, it had bad service. After the second or third time it happened, the host interjected and said, and I'm only slightly paraphrasing, "Coach, your connection is as bad as your offense."
Well, he ain't lie. He ain't lie about the offense.
Right. And that's what I was sort of getting at with the Titans earlier. It's the Giants. I mean, look, and I know the markets are different. Dallas, New York, Chicago. I mean, you could even throw Jacksonville in there. They're not a big market, but there's some stuff going down in Jacksonville. That
Mhm.
team is in dire straits as well. But at least those teams from where we sit
Mhm.
are entertainingly bad. If you want, I mean, that's what I like in my bad teams. So before I moved to Nashville almost 10 years ago, when I was living in the Washington, D.C. area, I was living there in 2012 when Robert Griffin III had his fabulous rookie season.
Uh-huh.
The then Redskins made the playoffs. He tears his knee in that playoff game against Seattle. And then it's just a gong show from there. And I always thought that the Washington football team was much more entertaining when it was a tire fire
Uh-huh.
than when it was just, hey, we're just, we're doing the best we can and we're losing games. And that's where the Titans are right now. There really isn't anything about this team that, as we continue to watch them lose, it's still getting our attention.
Yeah, they don't have.
It's not even the turmoil, right? It's not even the turmoil in the. I think the Bears players were being asked yesterday about whether or not the coaching staff had lost the locker room. Kevin Byard was even asked about that, and he said, "I'm not going there." But Micah Parsons is being asked about his thoughts on what's going on in Dallas, and he's saying, "Listen to my podcast." Like, there, at least, that makes it interesting. What people calling in it, the post game Bears call-ins yesterday were just, it was like the guys
listen to.
It was like the guys from the Saturday Night Live skit calling in, complaining about the Bears. But there's just, I look at this Titans team, and turmoil aside, you just look at this Titans team, and you have a quarterback who, even when he plays statistically his best game of the season, it's really a nothing performance. It doesn't help the team win. The players you're hoping can grow to be a part of the solution are in positions where they're important positions. Like we've talked last week about J.C. Latham.
Mhm.
Of course, it's important for them to have a cornerstone left tackle. But talking about left tackle isn't very interesting. Now, right tackle, that's something very interesting to talk about. But
we can talk about that for 6 months.
Right. Left tackle is just not a really interesting position. I mean, you look at the Giants and what's going on there. At least I think that you have a potential superstar in Malik Neighbors at wide receiver. Even if it's not Daniel Jones who's throwing him the ball after this season, or even after this season, because I wonder if the Giants might make a quarterback change. At least you have someone you can look to and say, hey, that guy, he's going to be part of the solution in a premium position. It's just, I look at this Titans team. I'm going to use a phrase that I learned from Caroline Fenton, which I think is perfect for this situation. The Titans are a plain bagel. There's nothing interesting about them. I personally am a fan of everything bagels, but the Titans are a plain bagel. There's just nothing about them that's interesting. I mean, we look, our job is to talk about them, and we're going to do it, and we're going to take your calls and texts, and we're going to find the angles. That's part of our job. But I'm going to be completely honest. It's getting harder and harder every week to think about what are we going to talk about with the Titans this week. They lost another game. They didn't look that impressive doing it. Will Levis still kind of stinks. Like, it's just, I understand where Titans fans are, Derek, about like, what is there to look forward to?
The Titans are like a sitcom. Stay with me for a quick second with this.
All right.
The Titans, and it's going to be quick. The Titans are like a sitcom. The first 3 seasons, or the first 4 seasons, it has you. It's something new all the time. Whether you like it or not, there's always something new. It's always. So you got to watch it. You got to make sure I got to tune in. I have to. It may not be but I got to tune in because I know something is going to happen. In the midst of all of the bad stuff, something's going to happen. But then after that 3rd or 4th season, when they get into season 8, 9, it becomes boring. You don't want to watch it anymore. You've seen all all the ups and the downs, the turmoils and everything else. Even though it didn't go the way you wanted to go, it was exciting to watch because it was new, it was fresh. It was like, oh my goodness, what's gonna happen? But then you figure out, it's like, it didn't. What I wanted to happen, it didn't happen. But when season 6, 7, 8, 9 rolls around, it's like, I don't want to watch this no more. It's gonna be the same old thing. I'm gonna be watching the same old thing. So I'm gonna go find me another show to watch. That's the Tennessee Titans. For the first 4 or 5 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, it was like, we need to watch because something's going to happen. We may not like what happens, but something is going to happen.
Will Levis is going to become a meme in this
Exactly.
game. I don't know how, but it's going to happen. It could be the surrender cobra against the Bears or whatever else.
It could be the dumb look on his face, just
Yes.
like what?
It's going to be Brian Callahan,
yelling at him and saying, "What the F are you doing?"
So these are the things that we were
Right.
looking forward to. Like, something's going to happen. I need to watch. I hope they win, but something's going to happen. We're in week, 8, 9 now. Now it's like, you know what? I didn't see it all. I don't want to watch this team anymore.
Yeah, it's
They're a sitcom. It gets a point to where the bad just becomes too bad. You don't even want to watch it no more.
They're the king of queens of TV.
There you go. It's like,
I can't say I ever watched the King.
I used to watch, I forgot what show this was. I can't remember.
Dustin in Hopkinsville. While you think about
Okay.
that, Dustin in Hopkinsville says we're in the last couple of seasons of The Walking Dead right now.
There we go. That's just what I was thinking.
Oh,
right there.
perfect.
You
Thank you,
hit it
Dustin.
right
Perfect.
on the
Thank
nose.
you, Dustin.
So much so they had to have all these spinoffs. But he's right. The last 2 or 3 seasons of The Walking Dead was like, all right, I've seen it. Like, I don't want to watch it.
Wait, there are zombies?
They're zombies. They're doing this.
And they're coming to hurt us?
Exactly. I've seen this before. I don't even want to watch it no more. Now they got to come with spinoffs. He's exactly right. The Tennessee Titans are The Walking Dead.
Literally and figuratively.
Absolutely. It's like, yeah, we've seen this show the first 4 or 5 games of the season, and it was entertaining because we got a laugh out of it. We didn't know what was going to come next, but now we know what's going to come next. We're tired of it. We're moving on. That is your Tennessee Titans. That is our Tennessee Titans. That is our home state team, professional team.
If anyone,
They become The Walking Dead.
if anybody from the Titans is listening, I do have a tagline for you for the rest of the season. The 2024 Tennessee Titans. What else is on?
You should watch that.
That's the tagline.
Yes. What else is on? Neil is on our
Oh,
phone line,
man.
driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Neil, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, D-Mace, how you doing, brother?
Hey, what's going on, Neil?
I loved you, man. It's a pleasure watching you, and happy Veterans Day to all the people that serve, man. We love you guys.
Absolutely.
I just want to say this, and I'm calling it right now. This is the worst quarterback play I have ever seen in the NFL. And I think that you're going to start seeing, reluctantly, these quarterbacks get these fat contracts. You got Dak making $60 million. I went back and looked at Daniel Jones' season that earned him that $40 million that he got. he was 15 touchdowns for 5 interceptions. Dude, I think, yeah, it was like, I was like, that's worth $40 million. But I didn't. Will Levis is holding the ball way too long, man. 3 seconds out. You can't do. Our line can't sustain these 7 drop back stabs and just boom, slants, drag routes, get it out of the ball. But yeah, something's gonna have to change with these quarterbacks, man. This is some of the worst quarterback play I've ever seen, and I think that these owners are going to get reluctantly to start giving $60 million contracts to somebody that has an okay season like Trevor Lawrence. The next thing you know, he looks like a hot turd pocket. So I appreciate you guys, and I'm waiting to hear what you have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dale.
What did he say?
Hot turd in the pocket.
That hits a little bit too close to home for someone who's potty training right now. Not me personally. I'm potty training my son. I know how to go to the bathroom, but my son is learning how to use the potty. So that hits a little bit too close to home. But that's an interesting point about. I remember he mentioned Trevor Lawrence.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when the Jaguars signed Trevor Lawrence to that deal. And I think the reaction was, is he worth that much money? But the thing is, some teams would rather have a quarterback and know that that quarterback is going to be there than to scour the free agent market every year. I mean, look, Sam Darnold got off to a great start with the Minnesota Vikings. He has turned back into a pumpkin in recent weeks.
Yeah.
You are seeing the Sam Darnold we have grown accustomed to seeing over the past couple of weeks. And if I'm not mistaken, the Vikings will be here on Sunday. Mm-hmm. So we will see Sam Darnold on Sunday when the 7-2 Vikings visit the 2-7 Titans. But we've talked about Darnold and Baker Mayfield and these guys that are on the middle of the pack quarterbacks. You don't have to sign them for as much money, but they still get the job done. Yeah, I mean, when you talk about top quarterbacks in the NFL, obviously talking about Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, and I think you can put Jared Goff in that mix this season. But like from there, the drop off to the next group of quarterbacks is significantly steep. So to the caller's point, if you don't have that guy, which only a handful of teams do, maybe it's worth cycling through quarterbacks as often as you can.
Yeah, I mean, I think the play of Will Levis is just a microcosm of what's going on at that position in the NFL, that you feel you have to, when you draft a quarterback, if you draft them within the first 2 rounds, you got to play them right away. And as he's playing, because the time is clicking, especially if you're drafted outside the first round. Time is clicking because you're going to have to either decide, listen, either we're going to pay this quarterback or we're going to move on to the next one. And that's what a lot of these franchises are at. And they don't have the luxury anymore to wait, 4-5 years to figure out if their quarterback is the guy. We got to do one or two things. We got to surround our quarterback with more, or we just have to go out and get a quarterback in the draft. Because the norm used to be draft a quarterback, have a veteran quarterback on your roster, let that quarterback sit for a few years, and then, put him in there. That used to be the norm. And it, whether it worked or not, a lot of times, I mean, I don't know the numbers on there as far as percentages of quarterbacks that have sat 2-3 years and then were successful. But the new norm in the NFL now is, and I think guys like CJ Stroud exacerbated it. It's, okay, we draft in the first round. You need to play. You need to show us you can play now. We need to see you do some Patrick Mahomes stuff right now, or some Lamar Jackson stuff right now, or some Josh Allen stuff right now. We need to see it right now. The minute you get underneath that center, we need to start seeing it. We're not waiting. That's the new norm in the NFL. And I think what's starting to happen is it's not working. It's not working. But these owners and these GMs are so afraid that if I don't put my quarterback out there, I'm not going to be able to see, I'm not going to be able to last long enough to see if he's really the guy or not. Because if he's struggling the first year, 2 years, then we're either I'm going to get fired or we're looking for another quarterback, one of the two, or both. We can fire you and look for another quarterback. So these GMs are like, man, we got to put these guys out here, and we just hope that we get a CJ Stroud. You know, we just hope we get one of those guys that just come right on the scene and can play immediately. There's not too many of those guys around here. Even in yesteryears, there were not a lot of those guys just, in the draft. But it's even more evident now because these guys got to play earlier than what they should have. And you're damaging these quarterbacks. Will Levis is he's sort of the outlier because he's not young, but he is young in regards to, being in the NFL. But the same problems that he's having after a year and a half, he had in college. The same problems he's having after a year and a half was the scouting report on him coming out of college. If in a year and a half, you can't change some of those things, then yeah, there's a bigger problem. You may not be the guy for us because he hasn't, you look at him, he hasn't changed the little nuances of playing a position. He just hadn't.
615-737-1025. We will get back into the Titans in a little bit. Titans head coach Brian Callahan will address reporters around 1 o'clock. We will bring that to you live. And because of that, we are going to move our usual 1 o'clock conversation with Teron Davenport until around 1:30, because of course Teron will be at the news conference. So we will catch up with TD at 1:30. But coming up next, Vanderbilt took one on the chin Saturday against South. Coming up next, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 The Game. Derek Mason and Adam Vingan. Willie Donick should join us shortly. Vanderbilt loses 28-7 on Saturday. They're off this week. They are back in action on November 23rd at LSU. A big game for the Commodores in a couple of weeks. But the reason why the Commodores were in the news late last week and into the weekend is that Diego Pavia is suing the NCAA. As I understand it, because I am far from a legal expert, his eligibility is set to expire after this Vanderbilt season. He is hoping to gain an additional year of eligibility on the grounds that the 2 previous seasons he spent in junior college should not count against his eligibility, since he had no reasonable opportunity to profit from NIL at that time. So he said in the court documents, quote, "I would like to return to Vanderbilt next year, but need time to negotiate NIL deals before the transfer portal opens. If the transfer portal opens before I can complete negotiations with Anchor Impact, the NIL collective for Vanderbilt Athletics, I will be trapped between abandoning those negotiations to enter the transfer portal or foregoing possible opportunities with other colleges who may recruit other quarterbacks out of the transfer portal before I can enter." Clark Lee, I believe, also submitted something as part of this lawsuit, which I thought was interesting. Lee wrote, quote, "Unless and until Diego gets a court ruling in his favor, I must proceed with building a roster without him. At some point before the end of this year, we will lock in the quarterbacks we expect on Vanderbilt's roster for 2025, and it will become very difficult for us to bring Diego back, even if he later obtains relief from a court." So I understand where Diego Pavia is coming from. He's been a breakout star in college football this year. He led Vanderbilt to an upset of Alabama. He was the star of college football that week. He was on every major interview platform I can think of. And I do not blame him, because we don't know what his NFL prospects are going to be. So I do not blame him for wanting to take advantage of his newfound stardom and make money off his name, image, and likeness. So I completely understand where Diego Pavia is coming from. What I think is interesting about this, Derek, is this idea that, as Clark Lee wrote, he needs to know too, because he needs to build a roster. And if he can't get if there's uncertainty about whether Diego Pavia will be eligible to play next year, he can't wait for that to be figured out. But in this new age of college athletics, Derek, where athletes who may not have professional prospects, this is their opportunity to earn. I mean, I have absolutely, and I don't think many people do, but I have absolutely no issue with what Diego Pavia is doing.
I don't either. I understand why he's doing it. And he wants to maximize his potential earnings, and he filled the 2 years in junior college. See, I don't know how that all that works. I guess it does, because in prior years when guys went to junior colleges, the norm was you spend 2 years, at the NCAA level, and then you're done. That was the past rules, I believe it was. I didn't go through that. So, but the guys that I know that came out of junior college, they either left after their supposedly junior year of college as a whole.
So according to ESPN, quote, "The lawsuit also takes issue with the NCAA's bylaws that start a player's eligibility clock once he enters a 2-year school, even if he doesn't play, as well as its redshirt rule and 4-year eligibility limit."
See, now that's totally unfair. What if a guy he has to go to a junior college, whether it be because of finances or grades, he has to go to a junior college. That junior college doesn't have, maybe they do have football, but you just don't want to play. You got to get your grades up or whatever the case may be, or they don't. So once you enter into a 2 or 4 year university, more importantly, this one, the 2-year university, your clock now starts. I think that's unfair. Again, some guys have to go and girls have to go to a junior college because they have to pay their way for the first couple of years and then potentially earn a scholarship through academics or athletics. So my thing is it shouldn't count, or let's say they should only count a year of your whole eligibility, because again, you're going to a junior college for a reason. It's not that a lot of guys and girls don't want to go to a junior college to start off, but they have to for whatever reason. But I don't think that should be counted against you, especially if, let's say again, if you didn't play. So it's being counted against me, even though I didn't play. I think that's unfair, but I get it, because you don't want guys or girls at the college level when they're 24, 25, 26 still playing. I get that part, but this is a new program in a sense for college. This is the new way of life, especially after COVID. Now guys and girls are being awarded 6 years. So, I see him having a point. But again, if his stock, if he had a grade of, because right now I don't know what his grade would be. Would he even have a draftable grade? I would probably assume, based upon what I've watched, probably not. He would be a free agent.
Right. I'm not sure. I would not be surprised if Diego Pavia were to make it to the NFL at some point, but
I don't think it would be by way of draft.
I would agree with that. And I'm not sure what his prospects are to be an everyday player in the NFL. And I believe he said in this lawsuit that another year at Vanderbilt could mean $1 million for him in NIL. That's life-changing money.
Yeah, so he's trying to recoup. He's trying to get money because he knows his prospects of making it in the NFL are very, very slim. So he's like, listen, if I can try to fight for another year, I'm going to fight for it, because it's not just fighting for another year to play. It's also fighting for now NIL, because I guarantee you, okay, I wouldn't say guarantee you, but I would highly doubt that if NIL wasn't a part of all this, Diego would be fighting for another year of eligibility.
Yes. So according to The Athletic, one of the arguments in the complaint is that junior colleges aren't governed by the NCAA. They're instead governed by the NJCAA, which has no affiliation. NCAA bylaws allow 4 years of eligibility over a 5-year span, though exceptions are made, like the COVID waiver and medical red shirts. The bylaws specifically mention 2-year and 4-year schools. Junior colleges do allow players to earn NIL money. Pavia's filing also cites athletes who played professionally in another sport and did not lose NCAA eligibility years, like former Florida State quarterback Chris Weinke.
He's right about that. Chris Weinke. Now, I don't know if Chris Weinke actually played on a major league team, but he got drafted. And I'm sure they were paying, the money he got, because he didn't get a scholarship, because once you become pro, sort of, in quotations, then you lose all you can't then get a scholarship and be a pro, sort of athlete in that turn. So I'm sure the money that he was making was paying for his college tuition. So my thing is, well, he got to play that. He got to play, period. Even though he was drafted and was receiving money, he still got to pay, if I'm correct. Now, if I'm not correct, please correct me. But he got drafted. He still was able to play. They gave him, or he was allowed to have his, he spent 2 years at Florida State. After being drafted and playing a little bit in the minors, he ended up spending 2 years, because I know he graduated and got drafted. He was about 24, 25 years old. So under that circumstance, he was allowed to play. Why isn't Diego allowed to play under these circumstances? I don't know the rules. I'm just asking the questions. It's not like I'm posing it's like, oh, you let him play, so he deserves. No, I really want to know, like, okay, if indeed that was the case with Weinke, and that happened years ago, I get it. But even though that was that way with Weinke, he still was allowed to retain some of his eligibility. Well, why isn't that the case for Diego.
Well, certainly the Diego Pavia and by extension Clark Lee and Vanderbilt are hoping for a expedited hearing because a lot hinges on what happens here. As
Yeah.
we said, if this takes too long, Diego Pavia is going to be in a tough position. Vanderbilt's going to be in a tough position. They need to figure out their plans for next season. But I certainly think that Diego Pavia, based on what I have read, has made a strong case. We'll see if the court system agrees with that. But considering the rise of Diego Pavia over the past few months, not knowing what could be beyond his college career, I don't blame him one bit for wanting to extend his eligibility and make money that could change his life. 615-737-1025. The Nashville Predators are back in action tonight. Willie Donick will join us in the next segment. They did win on Saturday, but that was not the big news of the weekend for the Nashville Predators. We will talk about that next. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. D. Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Derek Mason and Adam Vingan. Willie Donick has indeed joined us live from Denver in a perfect segment for Willie to rejoin us on the program because the Predators are back in action tonight against the Colorado Avalanche to kick off this critical road trip. Puck drop at 8, pregame at 7 here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. The Predators did win their final home game before this road trip, 4-0 against the Utah Hockey Club on Saturday. But the big news of the weekend for the Nashville Predators, on Saturday, they placed Dante Fabro on waivers. And on Sunday, he gone, claimed by the Columbus Blue Jackets. So Dante Fabro, a first-round pick of the Nashville Predators in 2016, is no longer a member of the team. And there are a lot of different ways we can go about this in terms of having this conversation. Here's the thing that's most important to me about Dante Fabro no longer being a member of this team. The Predators are no longer paying a depth defenseman who was scratched more often than not this season, $2.5 million. That is not an insignificant amount of money for a team that may have to make a move at some point if things don't get on the right track. And then the other part of this conversation, and I'll let Willie decide which one he wants to do. The other part of this conversation is we talk so much about the Titans' recent drafts and how they've come up empty, finding key players in the 2020, 2021, and 2022 drafts. The Predators have had a bit of a rough go in recent drafts. Between 2016 and 2020, the Predators drafted 4 players in the first round. They did not have a first-round pick in 2018. Here is where those players are now. 2016, Dante Fabro, waived, claimed by Columbus. 2017, Eeli Tolvanen, waived, claimed by Seattle. 2019, Philip Tomasino, still on the roster. Who knows what we have in Philip Tomasino. 2020, Yaroslav Askarov, traded. So, not a great run there. And even the second-round picks in that stretch of time have been, iffy. Sam Girard, traded for Kyle Turris. That's a hard one to live down. Grant Mismash did nothing in the NHL, was part of the trade with Tampa Bay a few years ago to get Ryan McDonough. Igor Afanasyev, no longer in North America. I believe he's playing in the KHL. They did get Luke Evangelista in 2020, so there's one. And maybe this is not the best time to remind people that David Poile is being inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame this evening, along with Shea Weber. Congratulations to David Poile and Shea Weber. That will be awesome. So, Willie, I will let you decide which angle you want to take here. The present angle, which is Dante Fabro and his $2.5 million cap hit being removed from the situation, which can be a huge help, or the Predators' iffy drafting over that stretch of time. Which way would you like to take it?
Well, let's look at them both. I think in the big picture, there's no doubt that they have not hit on big first-round picks. Now, none of those guys were high first-round picks. I think it's part of having a successful team on the ice is you don't get the pick high, and so you have to be precise. I would argue that Dante Fabro is a good first-round. He's a good NHL player, right? So he's not a total waste of time by any stretch. I think he's going to play in the NHL for another 5-6 years. He's a right-handed defenseman. It's kind of like the left-handed pitcher in baseball. He'll continue to play. But it's what is he worth now at this stage of his career? And he's making a salary that, as you mentioned, is a little high for what he's giving this particular team. So I will certainly say that those drafts that you mentioned have not yielded a lot. I think we still have to wait and see the final chapters here of Phil Tomasino. He's shown some signs of life in these last couple of games. So let's see what it looks like going forward. I think this season is kind of a make or break for him. And, they did get a big they decided to flip Askarov. Let's not go back through that saga, but now they sort of reset, assets they got for him. So we'll see what happens, along those lines. But in the now, Dante Fabro had been passed up by Mark Del Gaizo, and they also had very little, if no, wiggle room in the salary cap without giving away a salary or trading away a salary. And I think it shows you that Barry Trotz would like to have the flexibility to make a move if one comes around. So I think those are the factors at play when Dante Fabro was waived. It's a credit to Mark Del Gaizo, and it's also, hey, to make a move, you had to clear some room. And Dante Fabro's salary was a lot more than the role he was playing.
So, Willie, do you think it was more so the salary rather than, or it could be both, rather than, because, Barry said, listen, if some things don't start changing, then I'm going to have to make some decisions. I'm going to have to start doing things or sort of, going down that road that I didn't want to go down, as far as trading off individuals, getting rid of salaries, or just having a shakeup in hopes that it wakes the team up. So is this one of those moves, or is it just a move just to clear some cap? Because if things don't change, you may have to go out and get somebody to help make that change.
And they couldn't make that change when they're up against the cap.
Exactly.
It would be more difficult. So this clears some room, and there's still no indication of if or when they'll get any money back from the Ryan Johansson grievance, which is still at large. And down the road, that could give them some more wiggle room. But until that happens, if you want to make a change, they were really up against the cap, which is rare for them. So I don't think you just keep a guy around because he was a first-round pick. I think Dante Fabro is more or less a known quantity at this point. And I think it's fair to say he hasn't been a great fit for Andrew Burnett's system. And I think they feel like Del Gaizo will give them the same value, if not more value, for a fraction of the cost. And I'm sure at some point they'll have to go down to Milwaukee for some depth and have an extra guy at some point. Probably not tonight, I don't think. But you have to know who the next guy is in the meantime, unless there's a trade imminent, which I don't think is going to happen the next day or two. But the GM meetings are going to be going on, right, or around the time that the induction ceremonies happen at the Hall of Fame. So I'm sure there'll be plenty of discussion amongst the GMs about what is or is not out there right now. But so I'm Adam, I'm curious your take. I mean, do you agree with me? Like at this point, Dante Fabro sort of is who he is, and for them to make any moves, they had to clear some space somewhere. It was that, or who else could you trade without giving them away?
Yeah. So Dante Fabro, he's 26 years old. He's played 315 career games. At this stage of his career, he probably is who he is. I don't see significant improvement on the way. And that's sort of my summary of Dante Fabro's time as a member of the Nashville Predators. I always felt like he left you wanting more. I think he is a fine, solid, depth type defenseman. But I never saw him as the type of player who's going to win or lose you games. So I understand there are some Predators fans who are thinking to themselves, how come Barry Trotz was unable to trade Dante Fabro and get something of value for him? Well, $2.5 million for a defenseman who's been out of the lineup more than half of the games. You're not going to have GMs necessarily breaking down your door for that. Now, the Predators theoretically could have retained salary because they do have one retention slot left this season, but I wouldn't want to waste that on Dante Fabro. You want to save that for something bigger you may have to do they
still have to pay him his salary, right?
No, he's Columbus takes all of it.
Once they picked him up off the waivers, they took it.
So right now, Puckpedia has their projected cap space at roughly $7.3 million, but I think that takes out Ryan Johansson's $4 million because of the grievance. So if the grievance is in favor of Johansson, it'll go down to, I guess, $3.3 million based on what we're seeing right now. But those two things combined, $7.3-ish million, that can help you acquire a big time player. But yeah, so to answer your question, Derek, no, Columbus takes on the full freight. That
Okay.
Dante Fabro is no longer being paid by the Nashville Predators. The Columbus Blue Jackets take that on. But I just, I heard Elliot Freeman on Saturday night on Hockey Night in Canada. He was skeptical that a team would claim Dante Fabro because of that $2.5 million cap hit. But Columbus is a young team. He can go in there. He can get playing time. It will be good for him. But, I know Predators fans are upset that another first round pick is out the door for nothing. But
Well, at some point, you are who you are.
correct.
Right? Whether you're picked in the first round or the fourth round. UC Saros was picked in the fourth round. I mean, it's just at some point, you are where your feet are at this stage of your career.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really about what value are you giving the team for the salary. I think there were a lot of people that thought Dante Fabro would be gone 2 years ago, right? Because he gets to the point in your career where you sign him to that next contract and he becomes more expensive. I think for Dante Fabro individually, this would be a nice fresh start from him. It's almost as if they traded him to Columbus for future considerations. You could look at it that way because they do take the full salary. If nobody had claimed him, then Nashville was prepared to send him to Milwaukee, where you don't get rid of his salary. And that you get a break on it, I think, if he's in Milwaukee, but not the full break. So getting rid of his entire contract is an asset to Barry Trotz in the short term. And I don't think they were going to sign him past this year. I think people were a little bit surprised he came back for another year when you get down to it. So, Barry Trotz cannot worry about who was picked in the first round in 2016, 17. That's not his issue. He's got to take what they have now and look ahead. And I wish every draft pick, every first round pick turned into a star. And Dante Fabro, probably unfairly, was being compared to Shea Weber and Ryan Suter and Roman Josi and some of the great defensemen that the franchise is really known for drafting and developing. He looked like he might be the next guy because he got up to Nashville so quick, ironically, really without playing any time in Milwaukee. So he kind of disappointed in some ways, but he is a solid role player in the NHL. And that's a lot better than 80% of the players that are drafted in the NHL, right? So I hope he finds a home. Columbus was unique in that they had a lot of cap space to take a flyer on him. And it's unfortunate. Why, right? We know the death of Johnny Gaudreau and things like that. They had more salary cap than they expected to have. And so there's a great opportunity for Dante. And he is a great guy. And I think his sort of up and down role, the inconsistency, you can kind of argue, was it because the coaching staff didn't show confidence in him, or he kind of lost his confidence and didn't earn the confidence of the staff? Either way, I think it was at a point where it was more valuable to have the cap space. And now we'll see what Barry Trotz does with it.
615-737-1025. Tennessee Titans head coach Brian Callahan will address reporters shortly, and we will bring that to you live. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
All right, let's talk F&M Bank. I'm proud to say that I had a 3-for-3 perfect round in our Take It to the Bank, which we do every Friday at 1:45 p.m. And that is through our friends at F&M Bank. Banking made easy on purpose. They want to make your life easier when it comes to your finances. They're right in the middle of your community, no matter where you live in our listening area, Mount Juliet, Murfreesboro, Springfield, West End and Nashville, on into Clarksville. They have locations that are set up so that you're easily able to build a relationship with them. They want to make your life easier. They've got tools to do that, whether you're a business owner, somebody right out of college just starting to really get an idea of how to do the financial game. So find the nearest location to you and go from there. They do a great job. myfmbank.com. That's the website, myfmbank.com. It's banking made easy on purpose. Equal housing lender, member FDIC.
D. Mays, Fingin and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Tennessee Titans head coach Brian Callahan is addressing reporters now. We take you there live.
That point in the third quarter where we went down and kicked the field goal. They get the kickoff return and score. We go 3 and out after a 1st and 10 sack. I don't know if it was 3 and out, but 1st and 10 sack. And now we're in 3rd and 15 again. And we punt the ball back and we pin them on the 5. And then they give up a 95-yard touchdown. And so really after the second possession, the second half, the game was, sort of out of reach for us. And we had to kind of claw back in to have any chance at all. So kind of a weird game in that regard with 8 possessions. The 9th possession was just the handoff at the end of the half, but 8 real possessions, and that's challenging. And we were in position to score on half of them. And if you're in position to score on half your possessions, you're doing all right. But again, it just wasn't enough for us to overcome and win the game. So,
sacks. How many of those were product of Will holding on to the ball too long versus O-line breakdowns?
I'm hesitant to assign blame for sacks. I think I've said it before. That sacks are sort of an offensive problem. It's not one person. It's guys getting open. It's guys being available. It's blocking a guy in front of you. It's running backs. It's linemen. It's the quarterback getting the ball out. So ultimately, 7 sacks is far too many. 2 of them were outside of the pocket. One was on a naked bootleg, if you will, and then the other one was on a scramble that it wasn't really anybody open. You just throw it away. So there's 2 of them that you can knock down. But really, at the end of the day, have to do a better job protecting, blocking people in front of us. Have to do a better job getting the ball out when guys are available. And there's moments where Will could have done that. So it's a combination of all those things. And at the end of the day, it was too many against a front that I think is underrated. I think those guys do a good job, and we didn't do a good enough job in those moments. And everyone shares a little bit of blame for that.
On those lines of, when you're evaluating it, the clock in the head of the quarterback generally is 2.5, 3 seconds, ball's got to be gone, or you've got to escape the pocket. For the most part, it seems like, it's taken 3 to 4 seconds a lot of times yesterday.
Yeah.
Is that something that Will can improve, that can be fixed, or is that something that the line is going to have to just protect longer because he's a guy that needs more time to get the ball down?
I think it's certainly fixable. I think there's a couple of them for sure that you point out that, there's one sack in particular is, it's a 3rd and I think it was 3rd and 14 or 15. And we run a pretty standard sail concept, and the underneath throw is available. And the deeper throw is not. And it's just at that point in the game, and at 3rd and 14 or 15, take the completion. And what could happen there is, 1, you break a tackle and you get a first down. 2, we get a good solid gain, and now we're in 4th and 3 or 4th and 2, and we can go for it in that spot, which we would like to do, particularly when the game score was what it was. And then the third one is that you don't take a hit, and there's 1 less hit on your body and 1 less hit for the line to absorb. And that was one that definitely should have just get the ball to your hand. It's 3rd and 15. It's difficult as hell to convert those and take those yards and see what happens, as opposed to trying to force a ball down the field or hold on to it to wait and see. You're just usually not going to go very well at the end of the day. So yeah, those are things that you can point out, and we will. Things where you can get better and play more efficiently and help ourselves get the ball out of our hands. So it's hopefully one less sack on the ledger for the game.
Do you think those issues are with him?
I'll come back to you. Go ahead.
Will's sack percentage, I think, is about 3 times as high as Mason's. Is that maybe an indication too that there are times?
I think all the circumstances are probably a little bit different, different styles and different defenses. But the one thing you do see from Mason is that he's played enough football, and he knows that, and that's his style of play on top of it. He gets the ball out of his hand. The flip side of that is that, you may miss an explosive play or 2 because of it. And that's the give and take. And, but Mason's played, he's been hit, he's been sacked. He's made those adjustments over the course of his career. And, those are the things that Will in the early part of his career, we're trying to help him make better decisions with those things on when and where to be aggressive, when and where to hold the ball, and when and where a completion and getting the ball out of your hand is going to benefit everybody, including himself. So learning experiences for sure. Hard to correlate the two. They play a different style. And that's just sort of how you manage guys. Guys play different.
Do you think those issues, because there was a play where you booted him out and Josh Wiley was coming open on that deep crosser. He didn't throw the ball there, obviously, but
Is it not seeing it? Is it believing it? Like, from your perspective, what's the feedback that you get?
Yeah, that one you would like to see the ball go up to Josh in that particular play, and the way that play was set up for. It's sometimes it's easy to see from where we're sitting, and when he's on the field and he's rolling out and he feels, reaction by the defense, and maybe he felt the corner was in a different position from where he's rolling out to versus what it looks like to us watching it on tape. So there's always usually reasoning behind it. But part of playing quarterback is sometimes you just gotta let it go. If you see it, it's just, you can't overthink it. You just have to let it rip. And that would have been one that you'd like to see the ball go to Josh with a chance for probably an explosive play. But again, it's just, you don't know what he's seeing at field level and how it feels when he comes out.
Do you see that as a step in the right direction, or is that because early in the season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Narratively, he's being reckless with the ball. He's putting the ball in harm's way. And in this game, he doesn't do that, but maybe he's not pulling the trigger fast enough. Is that a different problem, or is that
different?
A step in the right
it's different.
direction?
I mean, it's kind of a play-by-play thing, because there's a couple plays that he pulled the trigger on that were tight window throws that were really, really nice throws, and that's the throws you got to make sometimes to play in the NFL, to play quarterback, and that part was encouraging. So I think it's I think that play isn't necessarily an indicator of the whole picture. But I do think he did a really nice job in the game of improving that aspect. He was smart with the ball. It was aggressive when he needed to be. And that's one where you'd like to be aggressive in that situation, potentially to hit Josh. But, you're not going to hit every one of them either. And so that part is okay. But I did see progress, and there's a lot of things I felt positive about coming out of that game with Will and where he was at. And, again, not turning the ball over, not putting in harm's way, being smart, running, sliding. All of those things were improvements.
You've tried a lot of different, like you said, but maybe perhaps difficult to compare. But just from your perspective, would you rather have Will how he was earlier, where you're having to tell him, like, don't risk it there, that's not the situation, or the Will that was more efficient and then missed a couple of, like, is that a positive?
Yes. Switch? Yeah, absolutely. You're gonna excuse me. You're going to miss throws and you're going to miss opportunities, and that's just how it goes. You're not going to hit every one of them. There's going to be guys that come open that your feet get taken away, your timing's off, and you got to move on. And just like, if we just would have hit that. But what's happening in the pocket, or how the coverage dictates, or what the quarterback sees, is not always going to be after the fact. It looks maybe more open than it was to him in the moment. So those aren't things that I spend too much time on. You just try to point it out and correct it and move on if there's something that can be corrected. But I saw growth in Will's play in this game. I really did. There was improvement. There's part of playing quarterback that, for the most part, can be pretty boring, and that's probably 80% of playing quarterback is doing the normal, mundane, ordinary things consistently well. And then there's a time and a place where your talent has to take over, and that's a big throw, the touchdown, for example. 2 or 3 of those throws, you saw Will's talent, his ability to fit the ball in a tight window accurately, taking off and running, using his feet, using his legs. Those things were all really good to see. And I feel like that's an improvement from where we were to where we are now. And, we got another stiff challenge this week against the Vikings for him to show even more of that. And that's just the way it is. There's going to be give and take moments that are good, and there's going to be some that you got to keep coaching. And but I was pleased with what he showed in that game overall.
You've tried a lot of different options at right tackle to get it fixed.
Yeah.
You continue to try to look for answers there, and are you somewhat limited on what you can do?
Yeah, I mean, there's only so many people available. Obviously, we have Isaiah in the practice squad. We've been working to get up to speed, and I mean, there's we try to help that side as much as possible. Try not to put ourselves in harm's way too often, but when you get in these long down and distances that we were in, it allows them to rush a little more. But yeah, there's only so many things available to us at the moment, and we're going to have to use all of them, whatever that looks like.
Were you satisfied by the NFL's official explanation? I think that came after your press conference yesterday.
Do I look like I'd be satisfied? No.
Brian, when you look at your defense, where you've been number 1 in yards all season, where's the disconnect with the red zone?
Yeah. It's we've not been, the last couple of weeks have not been as good as we're capable of being down there for various reasons. We're allowing touchdowns at a rate that is making it hard for us to be able to close out games or win games. And when you give up touchdowns and don't hold them to field goals, regardless of how they got down there, that's where it gets it. We're not a high scoring offense right now ourselves, and so it's hard to match score for score. And we got to be tighter down there. We got to do a better job all the way around. I think just the eyes, technique, all that stuff can improve. And when you give up touchdowns at the rate we have, it just makes it hard for us to stay in the games against some of these good offenses and teams that can score. So that part's got to get better. We're good we're good in a lot of areas, which is how it feels like across our whole team. Like there's a lot of really positive things going on and things happening, but then sort of critical spots we're not where we need to be to win games, and we need more of that.
Is that where the injuries to Chidobe and Jarius really show up?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly wish those guys were playing for us right now. That was the hope. But I will say, I think Darrell Baker's done a really nice job. I think he really has. I think Jarvis is improving every week, and he's shown that he's capable of playing. So I wouldn't say that that's necessarily the reason. I think we just had the Detroit game in particular, just some bad eye discipline and man coverage. And in fairness, they've been put in some tough spots too. They've had bad field position on a number of drives that put them in with their kind of backs against the wall. They're trying to fight for a stop. So that's not lost on me either. I understand that they've been put in some difficult spots, but we just would like to see us be able to force in those difficult spots, at least force field goals and not give up touchdowns at the rate we have right now. And it's too much.
I know I touched on this a little bit yesterday with Kenneth in pass coverage. Is there anything that you guys can do to mask that or scheme that differently since the tape's kind of out there?
Yeah, I don't, that one wasn't on Kenneth.
I'm sorry, I meant just throughout the season.
I mean, there's only probably a handful of linebackers that are high level coverage defenders and play with the physicality and toughness that he plays with. It's hard to do all that great. And then sometimes the stuff in zone coverage and things get attributed to linebackers when it's not really there. It's zone coverage. They're just trying to be in a spot. The one it's probably unfair because it gets, he's got the running back in coverage down in the low red zone and he's running to cover the rail route and the ball goes up and he's just kind of half turns, but just sort of runs through him. Like he's in position. He was where he's supposed to be. And it looks bad because of the penalty. And then the one in the red zone, that was a touchdown. Interesting concept that they ran. Part of that was probably because he had quite a bit of time to survey the field, but really the way that route came across, that's really not Kenneth's coverage. He just ended up there the way the route came. I don't want to take up too much time with it, but Jarvis pushes to the hash where he's supposed to. The shallow came underneath and then jumped vertical, and there's really all the underneath coverage, and there was nobody back there. It's sort of the perfect awkward route for that coverage, and I don't know that it was necessarily intentional. I think it just ended up back there because he had time to survey the whole field. But there's things about Kenneth that are really good that we love about him, and everybody's got strengths and weaknesses, and we got to keep finding ways to help him if the pass coverage continues to be an issue. And some of that stuff looks worse on him than it really is. But I understand where the question comes from.
On that play that you just described, Jarvis has said that was something he hasn't seen before.
Yeah,
it's not the first time he said that. At what point, what can you do to try to get him to that point where he's not seeing so many things he hasn't seen before?
It just comes with playing. It's just what it is for rookies. There's things that JC sees every week that he hasn't seen. It's the nature of it. There's good coaches in the league. There's good players in the league, and they find ways to stress what you do and how you do it. And there's going to be moments like that probably in every game for him. It's just things that he hasn't encountered yet, route concepts that he hasn't had to cover. Again, I don't get that route concept. In my opinion, I don't know if that was intentional or not. It just sort of ended up there, but ended up in the soft spot of the coverage. And Jarvis was exactly where he was supposed to be, given the pattern of the route and where he was supposed to go. So he's right. It was something that he hadn't seen before. And I don't know that I've seen one that played out like that very often. So if they did it intentionally, unbelievable play match to coverage match. You know what I mean? That happens. That's kind of what happened on our touchdown early in the game. We had we caught them in an awkward rotation. Calvin he's running on a half field nickel who's trying to play. They're trying to disguise their Tampa coverage. And we just run past the nickel who's not used to playing in the half field. And that safety's dropping in from top down. So he's trying to look down. And we hit the play hit versus the coverage, and so those things happen.
What happened that caused the breakdown on the long kickoff return?
Julius Wood was covering. He inside releases, guy gets washed, and then he ends up on the ground. and he takes out like 3 blockers or 3 of the coverage guys down there. So as he comes down inside, he gets sort of washed and he falls and he takes out like 3 guys on that side. And now there's a huge lane because no one can fit because they're on the ground. It was really just a unfortunate on the ground issue where he takes out our own people as he falls down. And that's, I don't really have a lot of answers for that. That's just what happens in football sometimes.
The critical areas that are costing you in games, are they repeat offender kind of issues, or are you cleaning up some things and then something else pops up? How's that working through process, I guess?
Well, I mean, it's, we've had some issues on the road with cadence and our silent work, and it's it's been on the right side primarily. And that's challenging. We had, I don't know, 3 or 4 false starts. So yeah, it's we work it, we address it, we try to fix it, and they keep showing up, and so we got to figure out a way to make sure that hits home, because they're pretty critical and they're killer when your drives go from 2nd and 5 to 2nd and 12 or 2nd and 15, and now you're in a really tough spot. So it's not without. I mean, we've addressed them, we're working through them, but they got to be better.
Brad, you talked yesterday about the play right before halftime and the swing that was. And
Yep.
That it's difficult for this team. It seems like every play you make is so critical. And so if you get it taken away, it's deflating. How much of a fine line is there right now with this team? And how difficult is a situation like that where you make the play, but yet it doesn't count for anything?
Yeah, I feel like that's happened a couple of times where we've made some kind of momentum changing plays, and we haven't been able to reap the benefits of them. And when they get taken away, that's killer, because we're fighting like crazy to make plays and make something happen and put ourselves in position. And when it gets taken away, it's difficult. It's just like anything. You feel it. You feel the effect of that. And we did a good job of bouncing back when we came out and drove down the field and kicked the field goal. So it wasn't like it totally killed us, but it's a whole different feeling when you're up going into halftime on a play like that than when you're down. And those are just the way games go. And again, when you get an 8-possession game and the possession is going to be limited and points are going to probably be limited, that when you get a defensive score, that goes a long way in helping you win the game. And to get it taken away was, it hurt for sure.
That was Tennessee Titans head coach Brian.
I mean, what I honed in on was, Will Levis, because they asked the question about, is he holding on to the ball a little bit too long? What is causing all of the sacks? And then someone, I forgot who it was, mentioned he's getting sacked double the percentage of what Mason Rudolph was getting sacked behind the same offensive line, basically with the same offensive guys. And Brian Callahan answered it as a coach should. It's on everybody. It's not just the quarterback. It's the receivers getting open. It's the offensive line blocking or holding their blocks. There are several different reasons, but I think what it typically boils down to is your quarterback has to have a clock in his head that says either run or get rid of the football. Mason Rudolph was able to do that, maybe because of his experience, but I wouldn't even put that on experience. I just think either you know or you don't know. Either you have it in you or you don't have it in you.
I think the same thing is, I thought it was a very good line of questioning is, was it a step forward that he didn't have the egregious turnovers? Because he didn't. But in doing so, he holds the ball too long. He misses guys. He's not taking the chance to trust his arm to make the throw that might be there. And so is that the step back to maybe take the necessary 2 steps forward? That's the hope, I think, of the coaching staff right now. The net result is really the same. You're not getting effective quarterbacking right now, albeit with a right side of the offensive line that is troublesome. It's making it tough. But he's going to get a chance to work through this. That's the one thing that you can say. If you're Will Levis, you can't have any complaints, right? You're going to get a chance to work through this more than a lot of quarterbacks would.
Quickly, and you can answer this, you and Adam, after the break. But with all of that being said, the way Brian answered those questions and what we see of Will Levis, the hesitancy, would we just now chalk it up as he's done? because I'm not sure that you can take a guy that has been making mistakes, that has been throwing interceptions, and then tell him, hey, listen, we need to sort of, pull back a little bit. But then now he's scared to make those throws. That to me is, you might as well look for your next quarterback now, because damned if he do and damned if he don't. He's not going to make those throws. He's just not going to do it now.
That's a good question. We can answer that on the other side. And once the news conference is over, we will be joined by Teron Davenport, ESPN NFL Nation reporter. We'll get his thoughts on everything that Brian Callahan had to say. Willie Dunnick, Derek Mason, Adam Bingen, 102.5, 106.3, The Game.
Okay, let's talk Lee Company. Predators in action tonight against the Colorado Avalanche. Tough matchup. Colorado, a very explosive offensive team, and we'll have radio coverage tonight here on 102.5 The Game, sponsored by Lee Company, big sponsor of Nashville Predators hockey. They've been doing service in our listening area for 80 years, since 1944. We're talking World War II. That is a great track record. And when it comes to air conditioning, heating, plumbing, and electric, they will keep your house in order, and they want to build that year-round relationship with you. The home maintenance plan. You pay as little as $12 and change per month. You get annual checkups, and then you get discounts on repairs. And as you move forward in life and you own your home longer, eventually those repairs are going to need to happen, and it's nice to have those discounts from Lee Company. So it's a great program. We recommend it. We've been doing it at our house for a long time through Lee Company. LeeCompany.com is the website. That's LeeCompany.com, or give them a call, 615-567-1000. That's 567-1000, area code 615. Lee Company, proud sponsor, Nashville Predators.
D Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 1025, 1063 the game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, Teron Davenport still has other news conference duties to attend to. So we will catch up with TD later in the week. But the Titans fall to the Chargers yesterday. Willie, our listeners have heard what I think about this game, what I thought about this game, what Derek had thought about this game. What did you think of the Titans' performance, and specifically Will Levis's performance yesterday against the Chargers?
First, for the overall game, I thought it was what I expected, that the Chargers, and say what you will about Jim Harbaugh, he knows how to build a winning program. And I still have strong opinions on everything that happened in Michigan and what they probably got away with that they shouldn't have. But he's good at what he does. And they've got a formula. He's got a very good quarterback. And that's something that can take you a long way if you put decent pieces around him. I think the Chargers have always had some good pieces around Justin Herbert, but they have not figured out how to put it all together. They've got some talent on defense. They're just better than the Titans. As for Levis, I think I'll go a little further than what I said in the last segment. What dawns on me is I do think he has had it pounded into his head. Do not take the chance of turning the ball over. And that's not a bad thing, but now in the coming games, he is going to have to find that happy median. And the only way to do it is the reps, and he's going to get the reps because they don't have any other options, at least until the end of the season, if he can stay on the field. And he absolutely is holding the ball too long. He doesn't have a feel for the pocket. He's stepping up in the pocket when he should know that that's where the heat is. The best quarterbacks are so good at being slippery and those little shuffles to give you a space where it doesn't even look like there is space. But I think eventually he's got to have more throws like he did down the field to Ridley, where, as you heard Brian Callahan said, he can look really good on some throws and say, wow, look at that throw. There just needs to be more of that. So it's a painstakingly slow process. I don't think there was a net gain, but maybe there's a foundation of, okay, he didn't give the game away, so that somewhat is positive.
Well, gosh, how can I say this? Or
I know what you're saying, D-Mace.
Yeah.
Neither one is effective,
Uh-huh.
but look, they have no choice but to let him ride out. And I think at this time he's got to show that he can do it, because right now I'm in the camp of you're looking elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But if he pleasantly surprises you and the light goes on, so be it. You know that in the meantime you don't really have anything else to do.
No, you're right. And if I had to put money on whether Will Levis will sort of work his way through this and figure it out, or, the other side, he'd never figure it out, I would be leaning toward he won't figure it out. And again, it's not to say that eventually he can't figure it out, because anything can happen. But I just think that in this sport, when things are so pressure packed, like every play is just about timing, it's about execution, and the margin of error is very, very slim at the professional level. It's not like in college where, you can work your way out of it, because typically if you got you a good team, your receivers are going to be open by 2 or 3 yards. So you can kind of work your way out of whatever slump you're in. But in the NFL, if you don't have it mentally, if you can't put it together, there's not going to be consistent 2 yards open. You're going to have to throw it through a needle every once in a while, more times than not. That's how the good quarterbacks become great quarterbacks, because why? They know how to lead game-winning drives. With them, you're never out of the game, and they can make those pressure-packed, pinpoint throws. That's what separates the great from the good. Will Levis isn't there. I'm not sure he will be there, because he's done so much damage at the beginning that now he doesn't even want to even take a chance because he knows that this is his last opportunity to declare he can be a starter in this league. This is it. So when you know this is it, you're not going to make those throws that are possibly there, those tight throws. You're not going to make them anymore. Why? Because you're scared. If I make this throw and I don't hit, oh my goodness, they're going to be on me at the end of the game. The fans going to be on me. The coaches are going to be on me. My players are going to look at me this way because I tried to make that tight throw and it got intercepted. So he's no longer looking at it from that standpoint. If it's not wide open like that deep route was, if it's not wide open, I'm not sure if he's going to pull the trigger and throw the football.
We do have Teron Davenport on the line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com, ESPN, NFL Nation, Titans reporter. Teron, let's continue what Derek was just talking about. Where did you see signs of improvement from Will Levis in his first game back from injury yesterday?
Yeah, I came in at just the right time because exactly what D Mace is explaining is what's happening. And this is something I pointed out about 3 or 4 weeks ago when I asked Levis about taking the deep shot as opposed to the check down. And he's like, well, I look and I see the deep one there, and then I wonder, okay, if I take it, what if that doesn't go? Should I have checked it down? But if I check it down and I avoid getting a sack, he was just talking in circles, and it just lets you know that there's just too much going on, and he's not just playing, he's thinking too much, and you can't play that game because it goes way too fast. But as far as things that he did better, I think he ran the ball well, right? They did a good job designing runs, and he did a good job protecting himself for the most part. There was one where he tried to hit a spin move, and he, ended up getting rocked on the right side of the field. But I think he did that well. I think he did a good job delivering those 2 throws to Calvin Ridley for touchdowns. They were beauties, and that's the Will Levis experience, right? That's how it works. You see those throws, and you're like, man, I could work with that. I could work with it, and you have other things, but it's just, he has to see it, believe it, and rip it, and that's what Brian Callahan essentially said, and it takes me back to 2018. Talking to Mike Vrabel about Marcus Mariota, because literally that same thing is what Vrabel said about Mariota.
And that's what led me, TD, to asking the guys that question. Like the first touchdown he threw, I mean, he knew it. He saw it. There was nobody. He knew that no one could get to that ball if I just throw it back there. It wasn't a tight throw. It wasn't a tight throw. Just throw it to the back of the zone, let my guy go get it. Then the second one was, there's no safety over the top. I'm just going to throw it in the back, and I'm going to throw it further enough to where he can run and go get it. Those throws quarterbacks, Will Levis, can make, because to him, those are wide open throws. They're not pinpoint accurate throws. When he starts to need to throw that pass at a crucial time in the game, that tough pass, that pinpoint one, I'm not sure. I'm not saying he can't make it, but I think he's so mentally just like everywhere that he's not going to even try it. And when you have a quarterback like that, you might as well say, okay, listen, we need to find us another quarterback, because at this rate, I don't think he will ever be able to get it.
Yeah, it's the over-analysis causes paralysis situation. And that's exactly, what I'm saying. And it's unfortunate because, Brian Callahan is doing everything he can to make Levis understand that he's the quarterback. How many times have he said, hey, listen, he's hurt now, but when he comes back, that's my quarterback, period. And he's made it clear. So it is unfortunate that he's doing all that and you're still having those issues. But, there's another play where they booted him to the right side and they flooded. And this is something I've been saying they needed to do forever, right? You boot on the one side, you flood that side of the field, high, low read. Listen, man, you can't go wrong, right? The linebacker drops down, you throw it over him. He drifts back, you throw it under him. And they had that exact concept. Josh Wiley was running wide open, and he didn't throw the ball, and he ran out of bounds, and guess what? It's a sack. Those are the things where you have to see it and you have to believe it's there, and it's got to be frustrating as a play caller.
Teron Davenport is with us. Teron, what's the issue in the red zone for the defense? I know that was a big topic because it's kind of fool's gold when you look at the good rankings of lack of yardage they're giving up, but at key times they're not able to make the key play and the key stop.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And it's really eye discipline. Initially I thought it was communication, but in talking to the guys, it's more eye discipline. You look at the Lions game, right? And it's crazy. I drew the play up on Whiteboard Wednesday, what the Lions like to do in the red zone. They take their tight end, they motion him across, he goes to the flat. Now, other times they'll have, a route over top of it, but that's how they scored a touchdown. And it was a matter of not seeing it, right, and bumping out and taking the assignment to the flat. And then you look at yesterday, Quentin Johnston running that crossing route, and that, like Brian Callahan said, was the perfect play. You know what I mean, where he cut it upfield, and it was just right in between the zone, and he found the empty part of it. So those things are happening, but I think if you had to put it down to one thing, it's eye discipline. But, the penalties aren't helping. And then you look at Justin Herbert, he took some ankles yesterday on his run too. So that, all of which has not helped.
Now, TD, what is the timetable on L'Jarius Sneed? Because obviously this quad injury, I'm sure it ended up being a little bit worse than what the Titans thought initially, which has put him out the last 3 or 4 games, and we don't know his status. It's too early to tell his status now. But have you gotten any indication from Coach Callahan, whether we should expect L'Jarius Sneed to be not only practice but play?
Yeah, he's been kind of. He didn't say anything about this week. We haven't even seen Sneed in the locker room even so. But he's been kind of avoidance when it comes to timelines and things like that. That's something that he's kind of adjusted to. So, yeah, there really isn't anything. All I know is, they did the MRI. They found some bruising, like deeper bruising and things than they thought initially. And that's what the real issue is. And then there's a strain in there, too, that they didn't see initially.
Teron Davenport, ESPN, NFL Nation, Titans reporter, joining us as he does every Monday. TD, great stuff. We'll chat next week.
I appreciate it. Take it easy.
Yep.
You as well, TD. By the way, before we go to break, to your point, Willie, this is from the NFL's research department. The Titans have allowed the most points per game by any team with the number 1 total defense in NFL history.
Right. And so what is that? That is red zone, and that is, not getting turnovers, and also probably being put in tough field position by the special teams.
Yeah,
so
that Lions game, they were put in a tough position
the
5
Titans,
times.
The Titans currently lead the NFL in total and pass defense yards allowed per game, but ranked 29th in scoring defense.
Right, but like yesterday, they have a nice drive to make it 13-10. They can't get it in the red zone, and then they allow a 56-yard return, and there's a short field. And so you're not going to get a lot of yards. You can't get a lot of yards when you get the ball on the other side of midfield, but you can at least try to hold them to a field goal. And all too often, the teams have cashed in with touchdowns and not field goals.
615-737-1025 will wrap up the show next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
All right, let's talk Loan Pronto. Remember, they can get you in better shape financially for 2025 by using your home's equity. So if you are a homeowner, always keep this option in mind and call to find out more. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com and find out more about the Express Equity line of credit. They can get you up to 90% of your home's equity, usually without an appraisal, and they can get it for you fast, 5 to 7 days. And you can take that cash and then attack financial issues that you have. If you're paying insane interest rates on whatever loan that you might have, all your debt, credit cards, car loans, etc. So call Loan Pronto now and find out more. See what you can save. It's a free quote. There's no credit pull, and you'll be in a better spot financially for the new year. 615-499-5780 or loanpronto.com. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D-Mace, Vingan and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stoneman and Company at the top of the hour here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie is in Denver, where the Predators will take on the Avalanche tonight to start a road trip. Puck drop at 8, pregame at 7, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie, as I understand it, the Predators lineup tonight against the Avalanche will be the same as it was on Saturday against Utah, which means no Tommy Novak once again. Sorry, Derek.
No Novak.
But we've talked about how big of a road trip this is for the Predators. It was good for them to get the win on Saturday night against Utah before they left, but a tough slate of games ahead. They've got the Oilers on this trip, who will have Connor McDavid this time. Did not have Connor McDavid last time these teams faced, although it didn't make a difference. The Oilers still won 5-1. They play Calgary. They're at Vancouver in a rematch of the first round. They play Seattle in the middle of next week. But what are you anticipating from the Predators in this matchup tonight against the Avalanche?
Anytime you play the Avalanche, especially here in Denver, the explosiveness is what you have to be wary of. If you look at what the Avs do, they are the most entertaining team in the NHL right now because they score a ton and they give up a ton. Their last game was against Carolina, and they won, I think it was 6-4 or 5-4. They got an empty net goal at the end of the game, but it was a absolute track meet. So you have to score to beat them. They are very, very difficult to contain. They have a top-heavy lineup, as we know, but the superstars for Colorado, Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon, are virtually unstoppable. You're not going to stop them. You have to hope that you keep them from just blowing you right out of the water. So really the next two teams that they play have the same type of DNA, right? A lot on the superstars, and you have to try to do well against their depth. But I do think the Predators have, since Andrew Brunette took over, played pretty well against Colorado. So let's see if they can build on what was, I think, a very solid effort, probably their best. I don't think there's any question. It was their best defensive effort of the season on Saturday against Utah.
Yes. And look, at this time last week, the Predators were coming off of a win against these Avalanche, and we thought maybe they can build off of it. Then they lose to the Kings. Then they lose to the Capitals. Then they lose to the Panthers. So we'll see if that changes this time around. By the way, Nathan McKinnon has found the score sheet in 48 of the Avalanche's past 50 home games since the start of last season.
Is that dude? Is he good?
I think so.
Is he good?
The jury is still out for right now, but we'll find out
The
later.
Avalanche have played 9 home games this season. McKinnon has 21 points in those 9 home games. Cale Makar has 14 points.
How can
in
we
those
get
9
one of
home games?
those?
Well, you got to be really bad.
And I don't want to be really bad.
Which
I
is
don't.
exactly. So, Willie, good luck on the call tonight, my friend. We will be watching Predators Avalanche at 8 o'clock. Puck drop, that is. Pre-game right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game at 7. Stillman and Company coming up next.
Be love on your people. Have a wonderful and blessed